Well, here we are into Age Friendly, all things related to older adults and seniors here in our community. I'm Rebecca Johnson, the host of the program, and today we're going to be talking about the Northwestern Ontario Sports Hall of Fame. And Diane, you're our guru about the Sports Hall, but you're also the executive director.
I am. I've been there almost 40 years.
That's a long time. You're going to be a senior in the program.
I very much am.
That's right. Now, one of the things that when I thought this would be a good program to have you come on and talk about the fact that, because it does relate to seniors in many ways, but one of the things for somebody that's just moved to the city or don't really know anything about, because I'm sure there's some people that don't even know we have a sports hall. So what is it, where is it, and let's go from there.
Well, we are a sports museum as well as a Hall of Fame. Some people say, when you say, oh, Hall of Fame, they think it's a bunch of plaques on the walls. We're much more than that. We have displays set up. We actually have designed our facility, which we're very proud of, to look like the various venues of sport. So there's a hockey arena, there's a baseball diamond, there's a ski chalet, and within those, there are a lot of great exhibits that show how things have changed. Some of our superstars, but then some folks who just were playing sandlot baseball. Yep. And then another section is the actual Hall of Fame, where we induct people every year into the Hall of Fame.
So tell me a little bit about the induction. What does that mean?
Well, again, we have to get out the message that we don't select them, we don't nominate them. It's a total public process. So we invite the public to submit nominations of people. We induct as athletes, as builders, and teams. Athletes must have learned and developed their sports right here in Northwestern Ontario, because again, we're regional, we're not just Thunder Bay. Builders had to have been contributed to sport other than an athlete. So a coach, a volunteer, but no less than 15 years. And within each of those categories, we break it down into professional athletes, so NHL players, for example, but then also amateur athletes, so people who have done an incredible job of Olympic competition at the amateur level. Builders is the same, so NHL coaches, people who are paid to be administrators of sport are eligible, as well as people who have dedicated 15 plus. 15 is pretty little. They tend to be, you've been to some of our dinners, 40 years of involvement in sport as a volunteer. So those are the individual inductions. And then our team inductions, you have to have been at least a national championship team. It's pretty impressive, given the size of our region. We have over 50 teams we've inducted, meaning all of them have brought home at least national honors to the region. So we encourage folks. So basically, we want them to put a resume together of what these folks have done, submit it to us, backed up with some documentation, justifying sort of where you got the information. And then our independent selection committee, again, it's not the staff or the board, sit down, and they're from all across the region. They have a point system, they have criteria, and they select people to be put into the Hall of Fame. It's a pretty great open process and a public process.
Now, you do have, that's an annual event.
It is.
So you've got that set for this year?
The date is set.
Right.
Our selection committee, I think, is meeting in about a week or so. So they'll be selecting them for 2024. We did have to take a break with COVID. We missed, just like all sports did. There's always going to be asterisks now in sport history of events that were missed, including our inductions. But in September, we had our 40th. And not annual, our 40th induction class. So
that's a lot.
It's a lot. And so we started inducting back in 1982. The Hall of Fame itself, as an organization, actually, the planning started way back. It sort of grew out of the old sports celebrity dinners and the Metro Council of the Royal Canadian Legion. Freddie Bragnello was a driving force behind that and always wanted to have a regional Hall of Fame. They really were thinking ahead. It wasn't just Thunder Bay. They started it as a regional hall. So that goes back. They started in 1975 with a steering committee. We, in 77, actually held our very first annual meeting, and we opened our doors in 78.
See, now when you're thinking about induction, and you talk about how long people have to be involved in a sport to get to the point where you can be nominated and all the rest of it. So I would assume that most of the inductees are older adults.
Very much so.
Okay.
They are. As a matter of fact, you have to have either been retired from your sport for 3 years or reach the age of 50 to be considered in the athlete category. And the majority of the people that we induct, for sure, are, especially the volunteer component, have definitely are seniors.
You mentioned that I have attended the induction dinner, which I have, and I thoroughly enjoy. And it's like old home week, because you see many, I shouldn't say all, many of the older adults in our community coming and celebrating those individuals that are being inducted.
Exactly.
It's a real honor.
Because they played alongside them, or they've
That's right.
coached alongside them, and they're very much a part of our history. And it's also great when I give tours of the Hall of Fame, and the older adults, they may even find themselves in one of the pictures, because as I mentioned, it's not just the Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
It shows the development of sport. There's some photographs from our Little League championships, for example. And now, I mean, at the time they may have only been 15, but they're now older adults, so they can have a look and see,
That's right.
see themselves.
It's amazing for a region the size of Northwestern Ontario, the number of individuals and the sports and the, you know, where they have gone to in sports. I believe I could say this sentence, that for hockey, for example, we per capita produce, that's not a good word either, but provide hockey players. One of the largest per capita that we have here in Northwestern Ontario.
Our statistics are that we are,
Correct.
per capita, from a regional perspective, we have sent over, I think now it's 130 individuals to the National Hockey League. We've had over 40 Stanley Cups, I believe, won by, I think, about 25 different people. We are definitely a hotbed of hockey, and that's a pretty fantastic thing to be able to say. And it goes way back. I mean, 1907 Stanley Cup winning Kenora Thistles,
Right.
one of the first. They will always be the smallest community ever to win the Stanley Cup. The cup they won is actually in the Hockey Hall of Fame in their vault. You can see it. But to look at that, when you go to the Hockey Hall and you see that, it's like, wow, Kenora.
Yeah, well, I'm even thinking of curling. I know we're getting the Scotties and all the rest of it, but the number of individuals, and curling's a big sport here in Northwestern Ontario, and we have had some significant winners at the national and international level.
We've had 2 World Championship skips, of course, Al
Right.
Hackner, Heather Houston. The Scotties Trophy, I'm involved with the hosting of the event. It actually just arrived in the city. We're going to be putting it on display at the hall. But Heather Houston and her team won it twice. First team to win it back-to-back. Then they went on to win a World Championship. So it's an incredible history of curling. It goes way back.
So now, most of these individuals, I think of Al Hackner and Heather Houston, they're older adults
older
in our
adults, that's
community,
right.
and they're still involved in in whatever manner that happens to be.
They are. Al Hackner actually announced his retirement last year. And then what does he do? He decides he's going to coach the Trevor Bonneau team that went to the Brier
Right.
and almost made the playoff
Yeah, I
round.
know he
So,
did.
and
It
there
was
was,
close.
you know, Al, I'm retiring. Al's never going to leave this. Or Rick Lang, who's also an older adult.
Right.
He is heavily involved as the coach of the Crystal McCarville rink and with the hosting of the Scotties. So they stay involved. And that's the great thing about sport. As you mentioned, Rebecca, at the induction dinner, it's a family. And,
That's right.
and people stay involved for a long, long time. And it gives older adults stuff to do. And it's just, sport's important. It's a really important thing
And
to
I
do.
think the other thing, too, is the social, because as you get older, unfortunately, some of your friends pass away.
Correct.
And then you need to have that interaction. It's really that you don't want to be an isolated older adult. You want to have the camaraderie and the ability to get out and visit with different people.
Exactly. And I
important.
love when they come and visit, when folks come to visit, but particularly older adults, because they are walking history to me. We have an oral history program that we do, and we've a lot of our students have done in the past. And they interview a lot of older adults, and it's a wonderful program because
Right.
they have the knowledge and the history. So that's another thing we want to kick off, do some more of. And it, again, doesn't have to be a Hall of Famer. We would love to talk to folks who played baseball or played hockey, and we can reminisce about where all the arenas were and
right.
how sport has changed and those sorts of things. And
We'll get into that in our next segment. Diane Imire, my guest. Here we are back to Age Friendly, and we're talking to Diane Imire, who is the Executive Director of the Northwestern Ontario Sports Hall of Fame. And we talked a little bit about the history, Diane, and where he got started and all the involvement for older adults in our community. But one of the things that we need to talk about is you have artifacts. You mentioned that in the first segment. We have, it's a museum.
That's right.
So you have artifacts.
That's right. I like to equate it, just as you have a museum of art or a social history
Correct.
museum, we are a sport museum, and we collect artifacts from the community. And again, all those items are donated to us. We don't purchase them. And it's amazing, the items we have in our collection. We have Olympic medals from the 1930s, because we sent a hockey team to the 1936 Olympics. We have a silver medal and a gold medal. And we honored one of the teams, and the daughter of one of the players came in with she had her dad's medal, and she had her dad's Olympic jersey. So we have that in our collection. So, and not just those things, but also programs, photographs. We can't display them all, but those items tell our story, and that's what we're about. We're preserving the history and telling the
Where
stories.
do you keep them? I mean, the Sports Hall of Fame isn't very big.
It is not, but in the basement of our facility.
All right.
So the main floor is our public space.
Correct.
And in the basement, we have secure space, controlled humidity levels and all the rest. And that's where the collection is stored. And then we use that to do our exhibitry. So we'll change things up. We mentioned in the first segment about the Scotties coming. Well, we're going to do an exhibit on women's curling. And so we will pull from our collection items related to that. Right now, where I'm going to be putting it, there's an exhibit on midget hockey because we hosted the TELUS Cup, was our last big event. That will come out, go back into storage, and then we'll bring out the
So
other
you can
items.
kind of recycle it all the time.
We do. And we also ask for some loans from folks. So if we're doing a specific exhibit, we'll ask them if we can borrow them, and then we can return them. But we encourage the public. We can't take everything. We're a multi-sport Hall of Fame museum, as you mentioned. We don't have a huge space. But, you know, there's treasures out there that might, it's like I think of our history as a puzzle. And someone may have a piece to the puzzle that we're missing about the development, for example, of curling. They may have the missing broom that tells the story of the advancement and the change of that. So as older adults are going through their items, as they're moving, think about us. As I said, we can't take everything, but give us a call. You may have an item of interest to us.
The other thing is, when you get to a certain age, you don't want everything, or you're wanting to move to a smaller home, and you have to get rid of things, or unfortunately, people pass away. Is that something else that you would be consider? People could call and say, "Hey, I found something, my dad's or whatever," or my dad is the one that wants to give it away. Because,
That's exactly how it works, Rebecca.
Okay.
And we encourage those phone calls. We encourage those emails. I would encourage folks not to just show up with it, because we may not be able to take it. So you may end up taking the box back.
Yeah.
But let me know. Like, give us a call. It's either myself or our curator, Catherine Dwyer. Give us a call, email us, and let us know what you've got. And then we have to check our collection and see if we have it. We may have the photograph you have, but ours may be ripped a bit. You may have a better one. So
there's opportunity.
There's opportunity.
There. One of the things that we need to talk about is the fact of history. Like, that's what it is. It's a museum plus history. But you want to be able to write stories, which you've talked about tonight. And the fact of how do we get the stories? Like, who tells the stories?
Well, there's two components. We have a wonderful research library. So if folks are interested in researching some of their own history, come on by and check that out. But we want to talk to people.
Yes.
We want to do some oral histories, continue that program. They have the stories. And it doesn't have to be, as I said earlier, the famous. We want the fan that sat in the stands and watched those early hockey games with the Thunder Bay Twins or the different baseball teams.
Right.
So we want to start that up again. So if there's any folks out there that think they might like to share some of those stories with us, again, reach out to us, and we hopefully will develop a list of people.
It could be just a story about what happened at a game or
Their memory of sport.
Right.
Right.
It could be anything.
It could be anything. Or if they if they were a longtime volunteer, tell us about your experiences and some of the teams and some of the people that you were involved with, because names are also important.
Yes.
We're about a facility of names as well. So let us know some of your memories for that. So we would welcome that.
With that, does it have to be long? Like, if you're doing an oral history, like, I think some things could be short, and I think things could take some time.
Well, we can do two ways. We can have folks write down some of their memories and submit it to us. We also have interviewed folks where they can come in and we'll put the tape on, and now we can listen to them or see them. We actually use video now, and we can record that. And again,
that's important.
It's very important. And I use it now. We actually started that program back in the 70s. We have cassette tapes. A lot of your viewers may remember cassette tapes. I say that to kids today, and they sort of look at me. But we interviewed folks who are no longer with us. And I'm glad we did, because we were able to capture their stories.
Well, because otherwise they're gone.
They're gone.
And you can't capture that back.
Another program we're going to resurrect again was photo identification days, because people may bring us some photographs.
Who's in them?
Who's in them? And if people don't write on the back of it, but it's amazing how folks, it's sort of a fun afternoon. I remember that. That's Bill. That's Susan. Like, and they'll be able to help us identify them, because a lot of times the artifact is really, a photograph is of no value if it's not identified.
No.
Another encouragement for people, identify your photographs. The date, what it was, and who was in it, with complete names, not nicknames. Nicknames were big.
Right.
So I want to know the full name. And the other thing with women is we will get a photograph and it was just the way it was.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
So
Yeah.
it would be Mrs. Bill Johnson.
Right.
And I would never know your name.
No.
So it's important even to help us with that, because that's a lost history of a lot of women. We don't know their actual names. So that's another thing that we encourage folks.
And of course, with women, they change their last name
Yes.
sometimes, but their sport might have been identified at their maiden name. So
It's a bit of a challenge, I will say.
But you go out and do programs. You alluded to some of that, Diane. It's really important to know, like, you actually will go to, say, a school, for example, and talk about some of the sporting activities that we've had?
Yes, we'll go to schools. We also go to older adult programming, so church groups.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's older adults that are there. I've been to Sister Lila Greco. We've done presentations. So I have like a PowerPoint presentations where I'll bring photographs and some video, actual footage from different events that have happened. And it's great. It's a great evening or a great afternoon. Folks just get to step back in time and reminisce about some of our highlights in sport.
You put some pictures up, and I'm thinking of Sister Lila Greco, and they're trying to get more people to and doing some activities. I know at the home right now, so it would be interesting to put a picture up and have some of them try to figure out who's in it.
Exactly.
They some of them might know. You never.
And they do, because I've done it, and I'll put it out, and they will. It's an interesting story. I did put a picture up, and there was a line that said unknown, and I got it solved that afternoon. That's Sister Lila Greco, because someone said, "That's Sue." Okay, great. So they filled that in.
No, it's amazing because and then it's a good remembrance for people, older adults that you're going to visit and chat with, because then they can tell you the oral history.
Exactly. They were there a lot of the times.
That's right.
And I wasn't. So
No.
it's great to be able to get those histories. And it's so important to capture the history now, before the stories are literally gone.
They are, and it doesn't take very long. So people can just call you and say, "I'd like to do this," and
Yeah, so give us a call and see if you would like to sort of be on the list when we're doing photo identification days. And also, if you want me to come and talk to your group, we've had the Gyro Club, we've had the Rotary, different groups that they can either come to the Hall of Fame or I
you
can go to them.
go them. And you can do things through Zoom or
Yes.
virtually, I guess is a better word. All right, you can do that as well.
Yeah,
if
lots of
necessary.
opportunities. It's exciting, and I love it. I love telling the history, and I love hearing the stories.
Right.
So.
Diane Imire, our guest is today, and we're talking about the Sports Hall of Fame, and we'll be one more segment. We'll wrap it up then, but enjoy as we come back. Well, here we are back with Age Friendly. Diane Imire, our guest. Today we're talking about the Northwestern Ontario Sports Hall of Fame. And one of the things, Diane, is like we've talked about the programming and some of the things, but how could you volunteer as an older adult?
We have different volunteer opportunities. If you wanted to be on the board, for example, and you have to first become a member of the Hall of Fame, but we do sometimes have openings on our board of directors. We also have openings sometimes on our selection committee. We would welcome folks for that. We do fundraising, bingo. Rebecca, you're familiar with that?
Yeah.
So we always are looking for volunteers for that. And just even coming in and helping out, as I mentioned, with some of the photo identification is another way to help out. We have a golf tournament that we are in the summer, sometimes looking for volunteers to help with our putting contest and things like that. So there are opportunities for volunteerism, and we really encourage folks to help us out. We always like to say that it's the community's facility. We want to make sure the community feels it's theirs. Because you are correct, I will be the first to admit, if I say I work at the Sports Hall of Fame, we have one.
Yes.
So it's important to us that we spread the word and let people know it. We're right downtown beside City Hall, and we're there.
And can come. And you're, one of the things that we didn't mention, are you open, how often are you open?
We're open 5 days a week.
Okay.
So Tuesday to Saturday from noon until 5.
Right.
And so folks, we again encourage folks to come on down.
Right. Now the Olympics are on as we're taping, but this program will be airing for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So it'll be the Olympics where, but there's so many people that are involved here in Northwestern Ontario in some ways in the Olympics. So can you give us a couple of examples?
Well, it's fascinating. I was researching it And since 1960, with the exception of 1 year, Northwestern Ontario has always had a representative at a summer Paralympics, a summer Olympic or Paralympic Games. You can think about our population mass.
Right.
That's pretty impressive. And this year we did it again. Okay. And actually we got another medal. Abby Dent from Kenora was a member of the women's 8 and rowing, and they won. They got a bronze medal.
Yeah.
And Abby was the stroke, so
See?
did extremely well.
Isn't it? That's exciting.
It's amazing.
You know, for our, you're right, with our population base and everything.
Can we stop for a sec? I think she got a silver.
Well, she got a medal. She got a medal. We'll leave it at that. We won't worry about what, but she got a medal from Northwestern Ontario in the rowing. So this is important. The point, though, is that the numbers of people, you're right, and to think that we've always had an athlete in no matter what.
It's incredible. It's incredible, but again, it's a testament to the coaching and the facilities.
Right.
You don't produce athletes unless you've got a core and a foundation for them. So the Canada Games Complex was a huge benefit in 1981. And because of that, we've produced amazing divers. As a matter of fact, Mary DePiro was in Paris, and her diver, who she coached, got a bronze medal in synchronized diving. She's now in Saskatoon coaching, but Mary started right here at the Canada Games Complex. So it's important that we have those sorts of things.
And one of the things, too, is when you're looking at some of the stories of the Sports Hall of Fame with older adults and all the rest of it, some of the, you can sit around and have a you know, a social time and just talk about all those stories.
Exactly. And people are a part of it, right?
Correct.
They created it. One of the stories I love to tell is about a woman named Hilda Donati. And Hilda Donati, we believe, started Canada's very first Pee Wee Hockey League. And she started it, she came from Manitoba in the 1930s, was a member as a female of the Port Arthur Hockey Association, which was the first at that time. And with Mary Gibb, there's actually two of them. And Tommy Crompton came into her cafe that she ran across the street from the old Port Arthur Arena on Court Street. And it was, we don't have enough teams for our younger players. So she goes, okay, well, I'll sponsor and I'll coach a team. So she did, one team. Well, Cinderella story, they won that year. That one team then grew into many teams that grew into a league, and it was called Hilda's League. And she actually started this league all by herself. But she was a character, Rebecca. There's stories that I've read in the newspaper. She actually punched a referee in the nose because she didn't like a call that he made. There's another story of Hilda when she was, I don't know if she was here at the time, but she was down at Maple Leaf Gardens, and this corset made its way out onto the middle of the ice, and apparently it was our Hilda that threw that corset. So she was a character, she ran the cafe, but if a kid needed some skates, Hilda made sure they had them. Like, those are the stories that, it's not just the famous, it's this community spirit and people that created opportunities. When we inducted Ab Kava, who went on to be an amazing builder of sport and a great coach, he played for Hilda. And, you know, he said, she inspired me to want to give back to the sport. And he was just a little kid when he played for Hilda. But those are the stories that we're capturing. And it's important that they're maintained for the next generation.
That's right. And that's all part of the oral history. So we want to go back to that for a second, because those are the stories that they're not going to come around again.
They are not.
And it's so, those are cool. Like, I mean,
they
really,
are. And that's when we interviewed Ab, that's when he shared that story with us about the impact that Hilda Donati had on us. And we're talking about different generations, about the Olympics, for example. The Paralympics, Robbie Weldon, amazing athlete, was in both the winter and summer and won a gold medal in paracycling. And I just read in the paper that her daughter, Keegan Gaughan, is going back to Paris in athletics. She's a runner. So the next generation is competing. And again, the families of sport. I mean, the Bragnellos, there's all kinds of, the Cavas, as I mentioned, generationally. So it's important to, like, the fathers share the passion for sport with their kids, and the mothers as well. And it just carries on. As I always say, we will stay in business forever because of the stalls alone. I mean,
that's right.
We just keep producing athletes that are great ambassadors for us all across the world in sport.
Well, it's think about the numbers of individuals that say that they're from Thunder Bay in Ontario. And first off, they say, where is Thunder Bay? But that to me is really important. They're ambassadors for us.
They are ambassadors, and they produce role models,
Yeah.
and they give us great pride.
And isn't that a good feeling?
It's a wonderful feeling.
For 40 years that you've been working there, is there one quick highlight that you could look back on and say, wow?
Well, lots. I mean, but the
Yeah.
one was the Stanley Cup came and visited the Sports Hall of Fame when Benny White brought it. They actually, in 2005, when the strike was on, they let the gentleman who had never had their day with the cup have the cup. Benny sat for 6 hours signing autographs for people to come in. And then we had a dinner at the Hall of Fame with Benny and his buddies that he played hockey with, that started here in the old days of Port Arthur, Fort William. Listening to them and talk about, and then the Stanley Cup was sitting right in the middle of them as they're having their Chinese food from Lingley's. It was a great moment, Rebecca.
Yeah.
And it was special. It was very special.
They're very special. Those are important. Well, thank you, Diane, for coming and talking about the Sports Hall of Fame. I've really enjoyed. It's
been my pleasure.
Been fun. One of the things now is we're thinking about sports and exercise, and it's very important. We have Linda DePiro, who will turn the program over to give you your 1 minute of exercise. So get yourselves ready to do that. And again, Diane, thanks very much. It was great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Linda DePiro, and today our exercise involves movement in a frontal plane. So that is movement side to side. I'm just going to start with lower body side to side. These are just very lightweight little balls, just something to hold on to as I move my arms in a lateral line as well, right? Frontal plane. From here, we can change the arms, pulling it back. I'm just going briefly through this, but when you do this, please add a few more repetitions. Standing wide, reaching the arms, here's the windmill, upper body. Add your little side bending knees. All right, now watch this. Going over to my right, left arm up, but switch. And then we have a different feeling here with side flexion as we go side to side. It's kind of a nice little feeling. This one I'm just gonna do on the one side. I'm gonna reach down, it's a progression, and up. I'm gonna reach down, bringing it in. Reaching down, bringing it in, adding a lift. Taking it down and reaching and lifting the leg. And then you want to try to get it so it all flows together in a fluid movement. Okay, then let's add 2 steps to the right. So we're gonna go 2 steps and 2 steps. Circling the arms, all right? Adding a lean. As you can see, I'm still working laterally in that frontal plane, adding a little lift, and 2 more. Again. Oh, let's do 2 more. I like this one. All right, so keep moving in all planes of motion, adding the rotation and the sagittal, and motion is lotion. See you next time.